What's up, guys? Henry here. Welcome to the second Manchester United podcast. Very proud to say that I'm joined by the one and only Mark Goldbridge. Mark, welcome.
Very pleased to be on it, mate. Thank you very much. I didn't realise it was only the second show, so yeah, good stuff. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's a massive coup for me to have you on. Obviously, you've been on stuff like the True Geordie podcast in the past, so good to see you've made the step up and decided to come over here. So yeah, let's get into it. First of all, obviously the big topical thing, I think we've got to start with the Glazers out movement. Obviously, massively ramped up in previous weeks. I think there's a march going on tomorrow. I'm aware that you support the whole cause. What are your thoughts on the sort of the active things like the march, the demonstration outside of Old Trafford? What are your thoughts on that?
You know what? I think I really do like it because I don't like sitting on the fence with anything. I respect people who make their mind up. So I don't think as a Manchester United fan, I've seen some people tweeting out, "I'm keeping my season ticket. I've already bought my shirt, but I am Glazers out," and then they've been absolutely roasted for it. And I think that personally, I think that's right. I think that you can't sit on the fence with it. And look, you've got a counter argument. People saying, "Oh, it's up to any individual what they do," and of course it is. That's what opinion is. But there is a lot of people with an opinion out there saying that people should be doing more. So I respect that. I mean, personally, I have said this. Look, I don't go mad about Glazer out on Twitter, and people know that. But I have done a video on it, and we do speak about it most times on the show. And my stance personally is that, look, we'll cover it because the United Stand is a fan channel. You can't just ignore something that's massive to the United fans. For me, I'd rather visit this on August the 8th because my fear with this is that if United buy a load of decent players, a lot of people will be happy.
Yeah.
And if United start the season off well, people will be happy. I've always said when we won the Champions League in 2008 and we won the league, people should still be as passionate as Glazers out then than they are now when we're performing badly on the pitch. Because ultimately, I don't like the fact they bought us on debt. I don't like the fact they don't support our football club, and I don't like the fact that they take loads of money out and don't put loads in. They're the fundamentals to me. So I am Glazers out, but I don't necessarily trust this movement. I think it will disappear quite quickly. So, and I think there's a few people like that who probably are a little bit long in the tooth who support it, but are like, I reckon this will disappear very quickly if we have a good start to the season and make some signings.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think you've got a couple of. I think you can sort of divide the Glazers out thing into two groups of people. You've got the hardcore Glazers out people, which I'd like to consider myself to be part of. And I'm sure you would as well, who look at the long term, the billion that's been sucked out of the club, and all things like that, ignoring the sort of successes and still realising that they have not been good owners whatsoever. And then I think you've got the other side of it, who are the short-term Glazers out because we didn't sign Matthias de Ligt or something like that. You got the two sets there. So obviously, I get exactly where you're coming from. I really hope it doesn't die out. I hope that people do start to become, because this is a gateway into people learning more about it, really, isn't it? You've got a lot of sort of propaganda and things being spread around, the facts are being sort of spread around on Twitter, and people can learn off of that, learn about the figures that they've sucked out and what have you. So I think it's good in that way, but I really hope it doesn't, as you say, die out in the short term. But yeah,
exactly. I think that if we start the season off with Bruno Fernandes and Tielemans and Koulibaly and maybe a shock Jadon Sancho signing, and we win the first 20 games of the season 6-0, people should still be as passionately Glazers out as they are now.
Yeah,
because they're still in charge of our club for the reasons that a lot of people didn't want them. But I just think at the moment it's you've got to tweet like hashtag Glazer out. Well, no, I don't trust this movement. If I'm totally honest with you, I've seen it before, and I don't trust this movement to do it. And if they're still doing it into next season, then I think there's a lot of United fans that are not ignoring it, are just monitoring it at the moment, that will jump on it. But you make yourself look, and also I've seen some of the people who are backing it, and I just think, are they in it just for a bit of opportunism? But you're always going to get that, to be fair. But no, I just want to see whether it's got legs, really. I mean, I do support it, but I'm not going to start doing what people are asking me to do at the moment, because this has been going on for a long time, and to be honest, it's not even people really dislike Ed Woodward. I don't think he's very good at recruiting players, but I'm not a passionate hater of the man. It's nothing to do with that. It's just that ideally I wouldn't like my club to be run like this, and that's what it is.
I'm with you on Woodward there. he's definitely. There's a lot of people who sort of absolutely hate him, aren't there? Really, there's people who absolutely despise his guts.
But he could just be a puppet for the Glazers, That's the thing. He's just doing a job.
This is exactly the thing. It's not exactly his fault. He's an investment banker, I believe, isn't he? If I'm not wrong. He's a businessman, and he does well on that side, doesn't he? Obviously sponsorship wise, we're doing quite well. Got all sorts of sponsors and stuff, but then it's not his fault that he's in charge of player recruitment. That's the Glazers' problem. They're the people who've got to appoint someone to manage that side of the of things, and he's been put in charge of that. I'm with you on that. People despise him. I really don't like the man because of his poor transfer dealings, but it's not his fault. It is the Glazers. I think everything comes back to the Glazers, really.
I think as well. I mean, look, there's going to be people listening to this going, "Oh, you don't know what you're both on about. It is Ed Woodward's fault." And the thing is, that's the problem with Manchester United Football Club. There is no transparency. There is not a lot of connection with the fans. I mean, there's Manchester United Supporters Trust, Must, who a few years ago were doing stuff like this. Now they appear to be in cahoots with the club. So there isn't a lot going on there. There's a lot of rumour. Maybe Ed Woodward is the big villain. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's just trying to, the thing is, we don't know.
No.
But I think people don't need to fall out with each other about it. The reality is, I think everybody ultimately knows that the ownership of this club is not ideal. There's just different levels of anger towards it at the moment. And the people who are a bit long in the tooth with it, maybe like us, are like, yes, this is a movement that needs to happen, but let's see how long this movement lasts, because there is that concern that it is just about poor performances on the pitch and poor performance in the transfer window. I think it will have a lot more credibility if it continues into the new season, regardless of whether we've bought players and regardless of whether we start the season. But I don't trust it to that, because it's human nature, isn't it? When things are going well, people don't want to have a moan.
Yeah, it's exactly what you've just said there. When Ole started, when Kate obviously came in, and we had that great spell from December through to about March, it was obviously the Glazers out thing. I think it was completely silent, wasn't it? Which is that's the problem. That is the problem, as you say. It's got to continue, no matter how we start the season. It's got to continue, and that's when it's more serious. The current movement, though, obviously we've seen it's done things. I don't know if you saw the Paddy Crerand show was cancelled, I believe. Was it 2 nights in a row or something? I don't know how the scheduling works.
Yeah, they're certainly not tweeting much, are they, either? So there's they have gone somewhat quiet at the moment. Yeah.
So I guess that's quite a positive thing in a way. At least it's making a bit of a difference. I think you've got to try with these things, but as you say, it's up to every individual. As you said as well, you can't attack people for buying merchandise or season tickets, or whatever. They're not doing it out of like saying they're liking the Glazers as such. Are they? That's not what they're trying to do. They're simply trying to support their club. So I completely agree with you on that one. You've got to have your own outlook on it, and yeah, it's got to continue no matter what. It's got to continue because the ownership is horrific. We'll move on from that then. There's a question here on Twitter from Boz. He says, what are your opinions surrounding Lukaku and his future at the club? I picked this one out because I'm aware we've got very different views on Lukaku. So what do you think about his future and how it should be handled?
You know what? I think I think in the heat of a season, you get very irritated by things, and I think in the off season, I can look at something quite realistically and go, you know what, this is the situation. I mean, take for example Inter Milan wanting to give us 60 million over 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen, because my fear is that actually Lukaku would go to Inter Milan, score a lot of goals, then in 3 years we're getting 60 million for him when he's actually probably worth 80 or 90. So yeah. I think for look, my issue with Lukaku was the issue when we bought him. I have the video when we signed him, and I basically said I don't trust this signing because he's a bit of a flat track bully and he hasn't got a first touch, and I don't see how that fits in with the way United want to play. And it sort of fitted in with Mourinho because the way he played, but then with Ole it's become abundantly clear he can't hold the ball up, and he doesn't really deliver in the games against the top six. So people want to call him a flop. He's not a flop. He's not a flop at all. What he is he's just a player that doesn't suit how we want Manchester United to play. And if he was happy to sit on the bench at United, then I think he has a role to play, as we saw in March when he came in. We had them injuries. He scored the 2 against Palace. We got 3 points. Yeah. The trouble is, and I respect Lukaku for this, he thinks he's better than sitting on the bench for United. He thinks he's one of the best strikers in Europe. So that's why I respect him, because he's clearly pushing the move. But I'm glad he is. I'm glad he is, because actually United it is, trampoline toes, whatever, playing in Timberlands. We can all joke about that. But the reality is, his first touch is never going to be a good first touch, and I don't understand that. And but it is what it is, and I would move him on because I don't think he's a top four striker in the way that the top four play these days.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree. I think he is a top four player, but I do know what you mean in that you do have to play to his strength. Obviously, his first touch is obviously it is quite clear. It's something that is a real downfall in his game. But I think his overall sort of play doesn't get enough appreciation. I think his link up's actually quite good. He's probably one of the best crossers we've got in our squad. I don't know if you've ever seen, he drifts wide and puts a ball in sometimes. So I think that side of his game really is underrated. And as you say, I completely respect him. I think if he's been told he's going to be sat on the bench, he fully deserves to move on because he didn't deserve to sit on the bench anywhere, in my opinion. A player with 120 something Premier League goals, that's not still in his young years.
You're right, and he's not going to do that, is he? But I would keep him only for that reason. And to be honest with you, as I said, it's like, he thinks he's better than that. And actually, if you drop him in an Everton team, as we've seen, or a West Brom team, or, even an Inter Milan team, then he will score goals with the right sort. Look at Belgium. If you put the right players around him. I think I said I went to the Southampton game. I think it was the last one I went to, and he scored in that game. And I just said, look, he's the penalty box king. If you give him chances in the penalty box, he'll score loads of goals. But United need more out of their striker. We know that. You need somebody who can actually build the play up and have a bit of guile to them. And he just is not going to be that. So I just don't. He's clearly not part of Ollie's long term plans. So it's time to go, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I guess if he's not part of Ole's plans, then it's best for him to move on. I'll flip that then. Who would you like to see up front next season? Do you think it's in the current squad, or do you think go out and get a replacement?
I'm pretty confident it's going to be Rashi. I think it will be Marcus Rashford. Look, Marcus Rashford's irritated me the last few months, but Anthony Martial has, and everyone knows Martial's one of my favourite players. So I'm always fair in my criticism, and I think Rashford was terrible towards the back end of the season. I don't really like all the Lingard stuff, but to be honest with you, that's off the pitch, and a player should be judged on the pitch, and Rashford on the pitch is just closing your eyes when someone's putting a cross on your head. He's finishing, his free kicks. It's just someone just needs to grab hold of him and say, you're a great talent, kid, but you're nowhere near the finished article. So I think Solskjaer will go with Rashford, but for me, I personally think there's a cracking swap deal there with Icardi, because I've always liked Icardi. He is not like Lukaku, but he is like Lukaku in the penalty box. He can score off both feet and get his head on it, but he's also got the ability to hold the ball up and bring other players into it. So I think Inter Milan would happily do that deal, and I think United have apparently turned it down. So I don't think United are looking to bring a replacement in. I've heard about like Ben Yedder and people like that, but I think United aren't going to. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't trust Rashford, Martial as being our 30 goal a season striker next year. So I would bring somebody in, but I don't think Ollie is going to.
No, I completely agree. Being realistic, I don't think we would bring in a replacement. Obviously, as you say, the fact that we've turned down that Icardi swap deal sort of suggests that Ole thinks it's in the current squad, that replacement for Lukaku, if we were to move him on. My opinions on Rashford are very clear. I don't want to say despise, perhaps a bit strong a word, but I'm really not a fan of Rashford's at all. I think he's a very, very raw talent. Obviously, you've mentioned his finishing, his free kicks, very indecisive player. That's quite clear. He's far from the finished article. I'm not even sure what his ceiling is at this point. I think it was around January again when I started to think, this lad is going to get somewhere. I think he could actually be a starter in the near future. I think it was the Newcastle game away at Newcastle. I think it was in January, and he played a brilliant shift. And I thought, he's really proven me wrong, Rashford. But towards that back end of the season, he went back to his woeful ways. Really, it was a real shame. So I think Rashford's a winger, nonetheless. I think Rashford and Martial are both pure wingers. I think they're both better when they're taking on a fullback out on the flank. I think that's where they're at the best. I think Rashford's indecisiveness really will make him struggle as a striker in the future. But yeah, it's a tough one. Icardi, as you say, a fantastic player, but he does bring a very hot-headed attitude, and his wife, obviously, I don't know if you've read the sort of stuff about Wanda Icardi.
Oh yeah, I'm fully aware of old Wanda. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But you know what? With that, it's like people were saying this about Rabiot, like oh, he's got a bit of an attitude, and I just think, well, I'm old enough to remember signing Cantona, and that's a man with attitude, and
yeah, yeah,
you know, I, I mean, it's interesting because we mentioned Lingard. Like the off-field stuff for me only becomes an issue if you're not delivering on the field. If you deliver on the field, then the off-the-field
yeah.
stuff you deal with it. I mean,
Completely with you on
Cantona
that.
kicked a fan into the stadium, so it is. I just think I like Icardi as a player, and yeah, there's definite baggage. I understand that, but should we be turning our back on players because of potential attitude issues if they're going to deliver on the pitch? And Icardi's goal record at Inter Milan was amazing. He was the captain as well, a very aggressive player on the pitch as well, which I think is what United need. So yeah, maybe that is the reason United are avoiding it. Though you're probably right.
Yeah, I'm personally, I'd say the same as you. I think if they perform on the pitch, then it's fine, their attitude. But I'm saying I think United will have a problem with that, and I think especially Ole will have a problem with that. So I think that's the reason why we probably turned down that swap deal. I think Ole's looking for a certain type of player, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like a very hard working, sort of quite conservative, not outlandish sort of person. I think that's, we read the stories about him perhaps getting in contact with Lingard, apparently being furious about those ridiculous stories,
Yeah.
Instagram stories or whatever it was. So yeah, I think
you got to remember with Ollie as well, and I suppose by saying Icardi, I'm a little bit of a hypocrite because what I did say at the end of the season is that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, by definition, not fault, is an inexperienced, naive manager. That's what he is. It's not. Yeah. It's nobody's fault he is. So the sort of player that's going to suit him best is somebody who's coming to Manchester United almost in awe of it. It's very talented, but in awe of it. So Daniel James will be, Wan-Bissaka will be, because we sort of want to recruit players that are going to suit and grow with the manager, because if you bring in your Bales or your Icardis, your big name players, that probably is going to be an issue for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who is not a big name manager yet. He's going to be better suited to players who are going to come to this club and see it as a big step up and are eager to develop and learn, like a Bruno Fernandes would as well, because he's a good player, but it's a big step up from the Portuguese league to the Premier League.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it. Actually, I haven't actually thought about that sort of thing, because obviously, you bring in the likes of Bailey you've mentioned there, and he sort of comes in as already a big player, and perhaps even like a player better in his field than Solskjaer is in his field as a manager, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, that's interesting. Personally, I'd love Bale. I don't know what your take on Bale is. I'd love Bale at the club. Obviously, I'm aware of his injury inconsistencies, but I think he's better than any attacker we've got when he's on his top form and can avoid an injury. I think he's a great player. Obviously, a lot of experience. But I don't know, what's your take on Bale, actually? That's an interesting one.
I was talking about it on a show the other night, actually. I mean, I've always been, no, I don't want Bale because he's 30 this summer. He is a bit injury prone. I think he is on the decline, and he's ridiculously expensive. And he's exactly the sort of player Ed Woodward would want, because he'll sell shirts. So it was always a big no for me. But as this transfer window passes, and I don't know who the right winger is we're looking at. I mean, I can throw names out like Nicola Pepe and, maybe a far-fetched, but Jadon Sancho or Hirving Lozano. But we're not necessarily linked to those players. We know with United, like we're waiting at the moment when we're filming this, we're recording this, we're still waiting for Wan-Bissaka to be announced, even though we've known for a long time we're signing him. So with United 2 weeks before they're signing them who we're going for, and there's nothing about right wingers. So at this point in time, if you're saying to me, would I take Gareth Bale? Well, yes, I would, because he's better than Lingard and he's better than Mata. So at the start of the summer, I hoped we would go for more longer term signings, but as things stand now, only an idiot would refuse Gareth Bale than stick with what we've got.
Yeah, it's getting like that at this point, isn't it, really? In the positions of obviously centre-back and right wing, the two sort of glaring ones, and central midfield as well, when we've hardly been linked... Well, we haven't really been linked with any... I can't think of who we've been linked with recently at centre-back at all. I mean, all the Koulibaly links have died down. The De Ligt links have died down. So, yeah, it's literally take anyone at this point. It is getting to that, which is a real shame, really. Anyway, we'll see in the coming weeks what sort of happens. And on the centre-back, actually, there's a question here from Blaine who says, who would you rather, Diop or Diaz? I actually forgot about Diop. That's another one who's been linked a little bit recently. So what would you go with that? So Issa Diop or Ruben Diaz?
I think out of the centre backs, if we're going to sign a centre back, I think we already know who it is. It will be Harry Maguire, Koulibaly, Diaz, Diop, or I think it's going to be one of those four actually, because
Yeah.
Delit's out of the question now. So we know it's going to be one of those four. Diaz and Diop, I probably would go Diop because I answered a question today about Harry Maguire or Diaz, and I do like him. Ruben Diaz from Benfica, isn't he? I think he's 22, 21.
Yeah, he's young.
I do like him, but there is an element of risk there because he's coming in from a different league. And I know we want to do that with Bruno Fernandes, but centre backs, what United need is a dominant centre back. And what gives Diop the edge for me is the fact that he has played a year in the Premier League. And I think that if he delivered on his potential, he's very big, he's very powerful, he's very quick, and that would suit what United need. So it's close though. I probably just don't know enough about Diaz. I've seen a bit of him, probably 4 or 5 games, but it's hard. And having said that, I haven't seen a load of Diop either. But I just think that Premier League stuff, I would just go for him. But I'm hoping we can still do the Koulibaly deal because I know that back in May, United really were trying to do that deal, and the way Koulibaly's sort of dropping hints on the AFCON, maybe there's something to be done there, but we'll see.
Yeah. Koulibaly obviously he's probably out of all the ones we've been linked with, definitely my choice. I'd probably put it behind De Ligt, but that's sort of completely dead now. Looks like he's Juventus bound. So yeah, Koulibaly's top of my list. Out of them to Diop or Diaz, I'm with you. It's a Diop all the way. I've only seen Ruben Diaz in the Nations League actually. I don't watch a lot of the Portuguese league, believe it or not.
I don't think anybody does. I think there's a lot of people who pretend to, but
it's boring all that, isn't it? They're all experts on Bruno Fernandes and the likes. Yeah. I was just thinking actually when you were saying the element of the unknown with Ruben Diaz. When you think about it, a few years ago when we signed Marcos Rojo, who was supposed to be one of the best centre backs in the Portuguese league, and that didn't work out very well at all, did it? So it is a bit like that as well, and it's similar with other players in other positions. Memphis Depay a few years ago obviously came over from the Eredivisie, coming off a great season there, and obviously didn't do as well there as well. So yeah, I'd go definitely. I think Diop's the way safer option, and as you say, he's more of a leader. If we're going to put him next to Victor Lindelof, who's more of a ball playing centre half, then Diop's the way more traditional one out of those two. I think obviously he's got, as you say, he's got that massive frame, massive player to go alongside Lindelof. So yeah, I'd go with Diop on that one as well.
The fear is that we just don't buy anybody and we're stuck with the same lot. But I think United are trying to sign a centre back. It doesn't mean we will, but I think we are desperately trying to sign one.
Yeah, I really do hope so. You never know, do you, with United, as you say, it's all going on behind closed doors. None of us really have a clue what's going on until it's pretty much done. Got a question here from King Labil, a really interesting one actually. Isn't it time we woke up and realised that our academy is bang average and hasn't produced a world-class player since Beckham bar Pogba?
I mean, the thing about the youth. I mean, youth's very important to Manchester United because of obviously going back many years to the Busby Babes, but I mean, the class of '92 was amazing, and I would put Beckham and Keane are my two favourite United players of my lifetime, but I would put Scholes ahead of Beckham for ability. So but they came through at the same time. Obviously, had Giggs. And the two Nevilles and Butt as well. So, I mean, it was an amazing crop of players after that. And you're talking, 20 years now. Yeah. So, look, there has been people like John O'Shea and Darren Fletcher, Marcus Rashford. But, yeah, we've not produced anybody for a very long time. And that's because United's youth sort of became stagnant. What they're trying to do now is there's a lot of signings, if you notice, around 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds from around Europe. And what we need to see is those sort of coming through. Mason Greenwood looks like he's going to be a very good player. There's a couple of others in there. So, look, I really hope it works because it's something that United sort of are fundamentally built upon. We have to bring youth through. It's what we do at this club. We've always had a product of our youth on the bench since the 1930s, and nobody gets close to that. So we have to do it. It's in our identity, and it's very important. But we could do with one world class player sort of coming through from it because it's been a while. But yeah. I think all clubs struggle with it. I mean,
yeah, it's luck, really, isn't it? It's down to luck. As much as you can say it's down to coaching or whatever, but it is luck. You either get a player with an incredible natural ability come through your ranks, or you don't. For me, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? Look at Liverpool. I mean, they've got that Trent Alexander-Arnold. He looks like he's going to be absolutely superb at right back. But you know, it's very difficult to do it. It's very difficult to come through from the youth. So we'll see. But one thing's for certain: whether we're failing at it or not, as long as we don't ever turn our back on it, that's the main thing. And if we don't turn our back on it and we keep doing it because that's what our club is about, we will produce more quality players in the future. It's just like you say, there is that element of luck to it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I'm not sure if you saw the young, I think he's Ajax player. Is it Dylan Hoogworth or something like that? I've probably completely butchered the pronunciation.
I know you've got the first name right. The second second name, yeah, I think you got that wrong. But I think if you said it, I'd know it, and I don't know it myself. So fair play. Yeah.
It's something like that. But it's good to see Nicky Butt obviously doing his scouting and bringing in talent from around Europe, as you said. So that's positive. There's another question here to do with that, just beneath it. 5 academy players you think will make it at United. I personally couldn't. I'd really struggle to give you 5 academy names at all. To be honest, I'm not very switched on with that sort of thing.
I probably could. I mean, look, these won't come through. But look, there's a fullback called Ethan Laird
Ethan
or
Laird,
Lard.
I know about him. Yeah, he looks good.
Really rate him. There's a lad we got from PSG called Alou Traore. He looks like he's got the physicality and ability to be, a really, really good midfielder. Obviously Mason Greenwood's an easy one. So we're up to 3 there. And then look, I hope one of these players that we bought, there's loads of people that we've bought come through. Gomez and Chong.
I don't know about Heath Chong at all.
No, I just don't see them getting game time next season, and the retention of Mata sort of hinders Gomez as well. So I think if they both went out on loan this season, they could potentially make it, and I'd throw them to Twansibi that. But I've got a fear that we're going to keep all 3 of them. They'll train with the first team all season. They'll play less than 5 games each, and that's not development. So if those 3 players get out on loan, I think they could make it at United. But if the next season's key, and we saw it with Pereira, if you get kept at the club or you have a bad loan, you miss the boat. So that's my 6 there, I suppose, who could make it.
Some good names there. Leo Connor's another one I've seen who I think looks quite good. Defensive. I think he's a defensive midfielder. He's quite a versatile player. He looks good as well. But yeah, as you say, Angel Gomez and Chong are 2 really interesting players. Divide opinion really. I think you got a lot of people who want to believe they're going to be world class. I don't think Chong's ever going to make it at all. Really heavy touch. He just looks really unpolished. Obviously things can change. Players can go on meteoric rises, but yeah, we'll have to see.
I think if he feels out a bit and, like you say, sorts his touch out a bit, he can do it. But he lost a lot of time with a bad knee injury, and he's not as young as people think now. I think is he 19, coming up for 20 now?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and the thing is about these youth players, if you think about the Michael Owens and the Wayne Rooneys, they're bursting on the scene at ridiculously young ages because they're that good. So I mean, I suppose Scott McTominay's come in at 21, hasn't he? But even that, I think, realistically, a lot of these players, if they're going to make it, they're making waves before that. Like Mason Greenwood, is he 17, 18? So I think he will definitely make it if he can stay clear of injury and just keep developing.
Yeah, McTominay came through a bit older because he had a massive growth spurt, didn't he? I think he was about 5'10". He went to 6 foot. What is he? 6'4" now, I believe, or something like that. In a couple of years. So that was his sort of late bit of growth. So yeah, as you say, if Chong bulks out a bit, you never know. Gomez's physicality makes him massively. I don't know. It's an interesting one, isn't it? It's hard to rule out small players, but it is physical England. And if he's going to go on loan, he's got to go out to Europe, I think, to get some game time. I'm not sure if I think he'd struggle in the lower leagues over here in England, to be honest, just because of his size. What is he? I think he's 5'5", 5'5" or something like that.
He probably would suit some. And I know teams like Barcelona have looked at him in the past, and to be honest, in those sort of leagues, you're right, he'd have a better chance. But I would like to see them given a chance. But I just think Ollie sort of talks about youth, but portrayed it quite poorly himself around January time when he said, "I've got young players knocking on the door, but even beyond the first team, they've got to get past Lukaku and Sanchez on the bench." And I thought, well, what's that attitude all about? I mean, why can't they just leapfrog those underperforming, overpaid players? But it seems to be a hierarchy, so I'm not confident next season that we'll see people like Gomez and Chong given a chance, to be honest.
Yeah, it was all talk with no real action, wasn't it? I think the really one that really frustrated me was the last day against Cardiff. The horrific performance, absolutely horrific. It meant nothing in the end. That game meant absolutely nothing. We knew before the game it meant nothing. And he only I think it was only Mason Greenwood, wasn't it? He didn't even start Valencia for his last game. That team selection really frustrated me, and I thought that sort of portrays your attitude to youth. You say that it's really important, but you're not actually taking action to sort of like.
Yeah, if that had been Mourinho, people would have been up in arms. But because it's Ollie, it's like, he knows what he's doing. Well, maybe he does. Let's see. Obviously, I think you've got to be patient with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Let's see what he does next season with regards to the youth. But I agree with you. I think that game meant nothing. We weren't getting top four. If you can't throw youth into a game like that, because you still get fans who go, "Oh, he'll play him next season." Oh, right. So his job's on the line in the first few games of the season. He's going to chuck youth in.
No, I know.
Christmas time, where points are really important, he's going to chuck the youth in. No. Europa League, which gives you a chance of getting into the Champions League. No. League Cup, which is a chance of a trophy, probably not. So it's like there's never a perfect time. It's that old adage: if you're good enough, you play. And he refused that opportunity a few times last season. So let's see what he does next season.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You said about Mourinho. There obviously people would be all over him. I'm a massive fan of Mourinho. Obviously, people would have definitely been all over him, and it's directly comparable, that Cardiff game, to, I don't know if you remember the last game a couple of years ago. I think it was 2017 where we played Palace on the final day.
Rooney came off and Gomez came on, didn't he?
Yep. Josh Harrop started that game. Obviously scored. I'm trying to think who else played. There was all sorts of youth playing. I think Transabi himself played. Fosu Mensah played.
I think Mitchell played as well.
Yeah, he did. You're right.
He just threw everybody in, didn't he? So
yeah, I thought that was perfect. We won 2-0 obviously that game. I thought that was just perfectly comparable to what Solskjaer didn't do, and obviously ended up backfiring with that horrific performance on the final day. So yeah. Anyway, I think we'll leave it there. I think we've covered a nice few issues there. Mark, it's been lovely having you on.
No worries, mate.
Thank you very much for coming on. I hope to have you back on in the future if you'd be willing to.
No, I would definitely. It's it's always good to see these sort of things going off, and I just happened to see the tweet, and I thought, there's no reason why not. And I know sometimes people get asked to go on stuff and they don't even acknowledge it. Yeah. But I remember it's not that long ago we were starting out, so I know what it's like, and happy to do it if time permits. So thanks for having me on. Yeah,
I really appreciate that. Anyway, thank you very much. Thanks guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. And hopefully the third episode will be very soon. Cheers.